This might sting a little, but I'm going to say it anyway. You didn't miss your big break. You didn't start too late. You didn't fail at building a business. You've just been asking your hobby to give you full-time results while giving it part-time energy. And trust me, we get it. When Natalie and I first started building our own businesses, we were exhausted, stretched thin, and secretly hoping that the universe would just send us momentum. We kept saying things like, why isn't this moving faster? But the truth was brutal and simple. We didn't hit our first 100K until we stopped doing 5 very specific things. 5 things that kept us invisible, 5 things that kept us overwhelmed, 5 things that made it look like we were working hard, but weren't actually moving the needle at all. And if you've been stuck in, I know I'm meant for more, but I can't seem to get any traction, I'm willing to bet at least 1, maybe all 5 are happening to you too. So today, we're breaking them down one by one so you can stop spinning, stop doubting, and start stepping into the version of yourself who actually gets results. And if you're ready for this to be the year where you stop waiting for permission and finally build the consulting business you've been dreaming about, stay with us. This episode is going to change everything. What's up, fam?
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Yes Club.
I'm so glad you're here.
But before we get into today's episode, as we do.
As we must.
Yeah, we got to check in, of course.
Yes.
So here is the question. What's one thing you stopped doing this year that made your life instantly better?
All right. I
got to think about this one.
Well, I'm going to share an answer, and I need you to keep the smug look that will enter your face.
No,
it's something you've been asking me to do for a long time. I already see it. Remember, there's a camera. They can see it too.
No smug look.
So I have always been of the belief, of the story, if you will. I tell myself that I can't work out in the mornings and I have to work out at the end of the day. And as we all know, days get away from us. Things happen. We get busy and the workout would not happen. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I'm not trying to become like some fitness junkie. Like, it's truly a mental health choice. Like, if I don't move my body and get back in my body, I can spiral pretty bad. So I stopped that, as per Tom's gentle suggestions, for many, many months. And we have since started a new routine where we work out in the mornings. And I hate to say it, but it's making my life better. Okay, I know. Just reel it in over there.
I'm not saying anything. Those of you watching, no smugness.
To be fair, I had to learn what I needed in my body because I was feeling sick. The first few times we tried it, I was like so nauseous. I had to like lay down for an hour. It was no bueno. But now I eat my little banana and peanut butter toast. Mm-hmm. Perfect amount of food in the belly. I can go work out, and the endorphins are amazing to start the day with. And now we're also doing our content creation in the mornings, which we used to also leave till the end of the day, and it's all been working a lot better. So I've stopped telling myself the lie that I'll work out at 4 p.m. That's what I stopped doing.
All right. I've got 2 that are quite related.
Okay. I'm so curious.
And they're kind of backwards in the way they're phrased. The first one is I stopped trying to read without glasses. I have finally succumbed. I am now 58 years old, and I finally had to admit I need reading glasses. Reading for me has always been something that I enjoyed, but I struggled with because what would happen to me is I couldn't figure out what was going on. When I would read, I would get so fatigued after 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. And what I started to realize was I'm straining trying to read the pages. And so I went to London Drugs and just off the shelf bought kind of the lowest magnified reading glasses. And it instantly made reading much more enjoyable. I wasn't squinting. I wasn't straining. I don't go through that mental fatigue. So connected to that is, again, kind of a backwards phrasing. I stopped exclusively reading nonfiction.
Yay.
Yeah. So this is something I remember like 30 years ago, I was really into like John Grisham when his books first came out, The Firm, The Pelican Brief, A Time to Kill. Those books really captured me. But I loved those fiction stories like lawyer books and things like that. Yeah. But obviously when you immerse yourself in your professional life, you read a lot of professional books. And
You do.
and what I got into the habit, of course, doing is when I read professionally, I annotate, I highlight, I put tabs in.
A white knuckle read.
But that can also, but it can also be a little bit exhausting, right? When you're having to focus and you're not really getting into a story. So this particular year, 2025, I started reading more fiction again, and I've really enjoyed it. I have to say that, and that doesn't surprise me because I knew I liked fiction, and I've been saying for many years that I need to get back to reading more fiction.
Best way to learn.
And I've loved it, and I've loved getting back into that habit because I mean, you are an absolutely ferocious reader. Like
not as much as I used to be.
No, but
because we talk a lot, which is a good thing.
Well,
I
that's
like
a good thing,
I don't read as much.
but at the same time, you read a lot and love to read, and I like picking up that habit. So morning workouts for you, reading fiction for me. That
Ask
sounds
us
like balance.
in 2026, how we're doing with both those things. But I think they're going to stick. I really do.
I think they're going to stick.
The theme of today is things that we are going to stop doing that are going to make our lives better. But the real problem behind a lot of what we're going to talk about today has to do with falling in love with your ideas. This is something that Tom and I have been talking a lot about lately. It's something that's come up in our community, the Educators Freedom Lab, or as we used to call it, the boot camp. This conversation comes up a lot. I just have so many ideas. I've got another idea. What do you think of my idea? And for me, and I know this for you did this a little bit too, but it's a little further back for you. Before I left my job, I became obsessed with my ideas because things have shifted a bit at work. People aren't validating you the way you used to. So you're constantly chasing validation for your ideas. And it's taken me a long time to realize that this is actually, it's a little cowardly, even though we want that validation for our ideas so bad. And you know that you're chasing validation because when someone goes, I don't know about that, you feel like they've literally said to you, like, I don't value you as a human being. And you just absolutely crumble inside. So this is a problem we're going to really get into is like when you're in that idea mode and you're chasing your ideas and you want your ideas to happen and it feels like everyone's against you, we need to talk about what's actually going on here.
Right. And you were telling me about a line from a show you were watching with your sister. Wasn't there a funny line that was... Oh my
gosh. Yes. So I was in Cranbrook a couple weekends ago with my sister. We were watching the new Mike Flanagan series, which is called Fall of the House of Usher. It's excellent, very dark, very twisty. And it kind of centers on this man who's this billionaire at the head of this huge family. And someone comes to him and they're like, hey, I have another idea. And he cuts him off right there. And he's like, I don't want your ideas. Ideas are like farts. And I immediately laughed. And he's like, everyone has them. No one else wants anyone else's. Keep your ideas to yourself. He's like, come to me when you have an asset. And I mean, he was kind of being a bit of a jerk in the show, but the point is a little bit of a good one. Like we end up falling in love with our ideas because they're safe. Like they're not tested. They're just this thing that's floating around in our heads and we never actually have to do anything about it.
No. And you see this a lot in education. You see it in other fields where everybody is just filled with ideas. And the one that really gets me is when people are filled with ideas, but they talk about themselves as like, I'm just a visionary. I'm not a details person.
Such a trigger.
It's like,
especially when they're like a CEO or a superintendent.
You're not a leader if you can't at least articulate one or two details about how that changed. Super easy to throw an idea out there that you're not responsible for executing.
Exactly.
And have no responsibility for cultivating how this might work. But boy, you're such a visionary. Yeah, that's not that hard. You can throw an idea out there that, because I heard that once in a meeting with a retired superintendent one time. It was like, we need to blow up the system. And I looked him square in the eye and I said, tell me what that would look like.
Step one.
But what would the teacher's responsibility be? Who would be in the classroom? Like people have a right to know what their work is going to look like, right? You can't, yes, blow up the system. Yes, let's make it visionary. But can you give me one or two details about what this would look like without pretending to be like, I'm just a visionary. You're not a visionary. There's no vision without some level of understanding what those details are about. So to me, we fall in love with our ideas. We don't fall in love with the idea of implementation or execution or getting down to the details.
So if you're stuck in the mud right now, you've got your notebook, you've got your OneNote, whatever it is you use, filled with your ideas. You've got them highlighted, you've got them mapped out, and it feels like you're just getting struck by a new idea every single week, but you're not really moving anywhere and you're not getting any real traction. By the end of today's episode, you're going to walk away with something most educators never get in their business journey. Absolute clarity on the 5 things that you have to stop doing if you want your business to actually grow. And it's not just being in love with your ideas. Because here's the truth. You already feel this in your bones. You're not stuck because you don't have ideas. You got them, lots of them, notebooks full. You're stuck because you have too many and you're giving a hobby level effort to something that you want to give you full-time freedom. So by the time we wrap up, you're going to know exactly which habits, mindsets, and patterns are quietly sabotaging your momentum from turning those ideas into a reality, and what to do instead so you can finally start seeing the results that you've been imagining for years. And if you've been waiting for a clear path, the kind that turns your expertise into consistent income, this conversation is going to feel like the lights honestly just turned on. But okay, before we get into the 5 things that we had to stop doing to finally hit that first 100K, we need to say something out loud here. This next part and everything we're going to share today is not coming from a pedestal.
Not even close. Everything we're about to walk you through, we did all of it. All of it. Every mistake, every self-sabotaging pattern, every I'll do it later. If you're thinking to yourself, this is me, yeah, it was us too. We did it all.
And honestly, that first $100,000, 6 figures, as some people will say, felt impossible. Like something other people did that had some magical aura that we did not possess. We kept tripping over our own fear, our own overthinking, and our own avoidance. And because we were scared to get it wrong, we made sure nothing actually ever worked. So we couldn't be proven right.
Right. And then each of us kind of hit a rock bottom moment, right? Not the dramatic kind, but just the quiet one where you realize you're the only one in the way. Like you're the one getting in the way. And that if something doesn't change, that if you don't change something, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. Once we faced that head on and finally stopped doing the things we're going to break down today, everything shifted. For Tom, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Tom, but I feel like it's a safe space to talk about money a little bit.
Yeah.
When Tom made this shift, it led to building a consulting business, a speaking business, a coaching business, a learning-based business, if you will, that's now brought in over $500,000 every year for more than a decade.
Yeah.
No employees, just Tom doing his solopreneur thing.
Just doing my thing. Yeah. And for you, Nat, last year alone, it was $260,000 on your
According to
CRA.
Yeah.
But here's the surprising part. Hitting those big numbers, not even close to as hard as hitting the first 100K.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. That first 100K is the hardest because honestly, it's built on mindset and habit shifts that you need to leave behind from your employee self and not strategy. Like people can give you all the strategy in the world, but if you haven't made those mindset and habit shifts, it won't work.
Yeah.
And that's why this episode matters, because once you stop doing these 5 things and stop just like chasing the new freebie for Maria Went or the new program out there for $27 that's going to change your life, it won't, because you're not going to stop doing these 5
no
things.
Shade to Maria Went.
No, she's great. She's killing it. I've fallen down her freaking funnel so many times. And every time I'm like, why? I don't need this Google Doc. Anyways, once you stop doing these 5 things, the entire game changes. Yeah. But all right, let's get into it. The 5 things that we had to stop doing before we ever crossed that elusive 100K mark. And again, this is not a list from a pedestal. It's a list from experience. We did every single one of these things and they kept us stuck for years. And the first one is a big one.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense when you think about what's the mindset that would keep me stuck as an employee and not allow me to become an entrepreneur. And you need to stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for permission. And we get it. Like we know where this comes from. We know what it feels like to be in a very bureaucratic school or district where you got to get approval from the person who needs to get approval so they can get approval to get approved to then get pre-approved. Red tape is everywhere. And so you get very, very used to having to talk to like 50 people. And they have to talk to 50 people before you make any type of a move to do anything. And there's also some validation that you start to then seek in all of that I need all these people to approve what I'm doing and what I'm thinking about if I'm going to move forward.
Yeah, it's confirmation bias, right? It's this idea that you're always seeking permission, and it slows the process down. And we get used to this idea that things move slowly because they have to move up the hierarchy and get the stamp of approval, and then it needs to go to someone else, and then it all circles back, and you're waiting months, if not years for approval to move forward. And so and that sort of conditions us to wait for others externally to tell us that
it's good. You're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. We like this. And we start to believe that it's not just a habit that we've built, but it's something that we actually need to feel whole.
Yeah.
Like to feel okay. And so the real shift here is just recognizing how you're doing it. For instance, I think about very, very early when I was first thinking, I think it was even like the first month, I was meeting with some former colleagues, teachers, people who had no investment in me becoming an entrepreneur or them ever thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. So they don't really have a good lens to offer support from. And I'd tell them what I was going to do, and they would tell me all this advice, and I'd write all this advice down, and I'd try to work it into everything I did. All of it was awful. Like they had no, or worse, you have people around that don't want you to change. They want you to stay small. They like the old version of you. And so when you're constantly asking for their advice and approval, you're setting yourself up for failure because they're like, you're great. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Don't change anything. And you're like, but I'm not getting any outcomes. It's like, oh, well, maybe you should go back to teaching, because they want you to stay exactly as they remember. So this shift from external to internal validation, trusting yourself, trusting your vision, trusting your process, your journey, all of it is such a huge one.
Right. I think this permission piece does a couple of things, and each of them is successively worse. One is that the system conditions us to believe that you need that external approval and that you can't make decisions on your own.
No,
that there's always that external. Now, I'm going to take it further. It trains us to believe that we are incapable of making decisions on our own, right? The system doesn't. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where it is a school system, it is an organization, and one person can't just go rogue. We get that.
Sure.
But so that works for a school district, and that's fine. But we have to recognize that that's conditioning us mentally in a way that is the opposite of what we want if we're going to build a learning-based business, right?
Exactly.
So at best, it's saying you can't make a decision on your own. And at worst, it's conditioning us to believe that we're incapable and that our decisions always have to be validated by some external source because we alone can't validate the decisions we're making. So it's just one of those things that buries us on one. It's very important in a large organization, but it's the opposite when you're trying to build a learning-based business.
Great point. Great point.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the second one.
All right, the second one. Stop trying to build the perfect long-term brand before you sell anything.
I feel attacked.
I feel attacked, right? This is where you can feel the most productive, but you're doing things on the periphery, right? You spend all this time, long-term brand. I need to think through my website. I need the perfect logo. I've got to spend hours on brand colors. You're basically playing business instead of doing business. You're on social media, but you don't have intentionality around what you're doing, and there's no purpose behind what you're doing. But it just, to the naked eye, it just kind of looks like you've got this business thing going on. And look, wow, you've got a website. That makes it official.
Got colors.
Again, no shade to websites, but you know how we feel about websites, listeners. That is that if it serves a purpose, great, but it's not what we lead with.
No.
It's leading. So you're out there and you're just kind of flailing.
I say I feel attacked because this was literally me for 4 years, 4 years before I finally decided to actually do this thing. And everyone around me was like, oh, you're so entrepreneurial. Like, look at everything. I was building nothing. It was a smoke and mirror show. I had this podcast called EduCrush. It was pink. It was very cute. You were on it. And it was a cute name, right? I got to talk to all these people that inspired me.
Yeah.
I had a thriving Twitter account where I'd mostly just get my feelings about something I cared about. And there was just, I was creating to create. And there is, is there beauty in that? Sure. Did it help me find my voice? Absolutely. But deep down, I know that I wanted things to change for me. I wanted opportunities to come. And when I look back now, it's so glaringly obvious that the reason I called my podcast EduCrush was so I could center the other people on the show.
Yeah.
And that might sound nice, right? Like, I'm always a learner. I can learn from everyone. But if you're trying to own your authority and truly step into your voice, making a whole podcast about how you're so obsessed with everyone else's work, isn't really the way to do it. But again, I did all these things because it felt safer. If you asked me, I don't know, 5 years ago why I was doing it, I'd have a very different answer about, it's not about me. We need to decenter ourselves in learning and da-da-da-da. Yeah, but the reality is it led to absolutely nothing really changing. I had to step in more confidently and say, here's what I'm about. Here's what I do. This is my expertise. Everything I do is coming back to the vision and the mission that I'm on. Then the opportunity started to come.
Yeah, I think that's something where it sounds good to decenter, but it also means that you are not really acting with some definitiveness and with some intensity and some focus and precision. You're stepping away from it and you're being way too, that's just a passive mindset. And so for listeners, that passive mindset will filter into a lot of things that we do. And we have to be a little bit more active and a little bit more purposeful for sure.
Absolutely.
You changed that though on that podcast for sure. You started to.
You gave me do you remember the feedback you gave me?
I do. Yeah.
It was like
I wasn't trying to credit myself, but I was just.
But it was an amazing moment of feedback. And this is where like true mentorship matters so much. Because everybody was like using me left, right, and center to further their own brand. And I thought I was killing it and building this network. No, I was just like this little workhorse for all these other people's businesses. But you said, it's weird. Like someone will say something really meaningful and then you'll just like, it'll be the next question. Like, you're like, I feel like there's no you in this podcast. Like it's just, and I had actually been going back and editing out my responses actively. And so when you gave me that feedback, I was kind of like, oh, what? People would want to hear that? And I think that's when, not only did the podcast start doing better, but then I started to like get more traction of like, these people aren't intimidating to me. Like I have something just as meaningful to say.
Right.
Like I can stand beside any of these people who have written books and built businesses, have a speaking career, and here we are. So it was an amazing piece of feedback all those years ago.
Well, and where it came from was my experience on my own podcast, which is, I had the good fortune of interviewing a lot of pretty big heavyweights in the education field, whether it's John Hattie or Dylan William or, Tom Guskey and others who really are those truly transformational people. And what I thought about when I interviewed them was, I'm going to get into this space with them and I'm going to prove that I can have a conversation with this person and from a position of authority, a position from expertise. And so my mindset was not to shrink from those big conversations, but to insert myself into that and show their audiences. Because you're right. No one says no to coming on a podcast. They all want to talk about themselves.
They do.
But it's a chance to showcase yourself to their audience, right? And that's the one part that I noticed. And because you had and have so much to say and so many perspectives on different educational topics, and you were kind of shrinking from that. The fact is that really took your podcast to another level.
Yeah. And this is leading us right into the third thing we had to stop doing.
Yeah.
Stop trying to change the entire education system.
Relax.
Do you remember the tagline I used to use for EduCrush? Tom will sometimes say it. I'm like, oh, I die inside. But you have to just laugh at yourself in the early days. Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Say it.
Reimagine education and crush it together.
Oh, God.
It's not as bad as you think it is.
It was cute. It was in earnest. But I genuinely thought that I was going to dismantle the entire system. Like I had these delusions of grandeur. And this goes back to what we were saying at the beginning about ideas. I had so many ideas. Well, if you ask me, I've got a million ideas. But if someone were to really start pushing me on a lot of things, it was like a house of cards. Like I didn't have any real plan until I got closer to leaving and I realized, oh, my expertise is assessment. I can change assessment and it might change everything else. In fact, you and I kind of believe it'll change everything else, but I'm not gonna like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just, when you come up with these very delusional, huge visionary statements that you tell people you are building, basically all you're doing is saying, I'm putting up something so lofty and so pie in the sky, I don't have to do the accountable work of making it happen. I just get to throw it up. And then when people go, what does that mean? And you go, well, I guess you'll never understand. Guess you don't understand. Like, you
don't get it.
You just don't get it. And we see people do this all the time now. And we're like, you are playing safe.
Yeah.
You're acting like you're a visionary badass, but you're actually putting safeguards around yourself so you don't have to produce any receipts.
Right. Right.
You can just be like, oh, you don't get it? Well,
the more outrageous your idea is, the less likely it's going to get implemented. So you can be this visionary, and trying to change the whole system. I'm going to have a moment here to say, I've been in education for 35 years. I know a lot. I have had a lot of experiences. I had a lot of jobs. I worked at central office. I know a lot, and I feel like I could have a conversation about anything educational with the vast majority of educators out there. But that does not make me an expert on every one of those areas. I can talk about literacy. I'm not a literacy expert. Like, I can talk about things that I have an experience in and I have knowledge of, but it doesn't mean I have the expertise to change the entire system on my own. That's ridiculous, right?
Of course.
So expertise and narrowing down and not trying to change the entire system, but changing and transforming that which you have an expertise in is the greatest service you can give to the education system. So as much as I've learned over the years, and just through experience and reading and all of the knowledge that I've accumulated over the 35 years I've been in education, by no means do I think that I have all of the answers for every aspect. I can talk about special education and I can talk about helping support students. That doesn't make me an expert in that area, nor would I have the expertise to imagine what a different system would look like on my own. Exactly. Again, that's the key. Could I contribute to that conversation? Of course I could. Could you? Yes.
Yeah.
Could many of our listeners? Of course you could. But on your own, as part of your learning-based business, you're going to just absolutely rework the entire system. Like, it's not going to happen. That's not how it works.
Quick note here on expertise. You've got expertise when that thing makes you a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because there's research that supports that the more we know through implementation, we enter something called the valley of despair. And it's actually where the deepest transformation in learning happens. And so you've actually started to build expertise because you're like, oh, I don't know if I know enough about that. But when you go to an idea that you're like, oh, that'll be fun. That's going to be awesome. You're living in Dunning-Kruger land. You're living in, I've never actually done anything with this. So it sounds shiny and awesome and fun. And if you chase that you're always going to live. They actually call it in their research, Dunning and Kruger, the peak of Mount Stupid. You're going to be up there waving your idea flag on the peak of Mount Stupid because you haven't actually done anything with it yet.
And listeners, if you're not familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's worth looking up. But it basically is this effect that when you have a little bit of knowledge about something, you tend to overestimate your expertise in that area. So it's a very interesting look at.
Let me quickly because I did a bunch of psychology at university. So the study that is behind it actually has to do with schools and education. So they got together and they studied a group of university students, and they asked a very simple question as these university students were going in to write final exams. They said, what grade do you predict you will get on this final exam? The lower the confidence of the student, the higher the grade. The higher the confidence of the student, the lower the predicted grade. So this is the point we're trying to make here, is that if you're feeling that lower prediction of, I don't know if I could do that, it's really hard, it's actually a sign you have more expertise in that area. So lean into the part that feels hard, because that's where your expertise lies. If it feels easy and fun, you probably haven't done anything yet.
That's true. I often joke with folks in workshops and meetings and things that I knew a lot more about assessment 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know as much as I know now. So I overestimated my expertise. And as the years go on, I kind of wink and smirk at that one, right? I say, I knew way more about assessment 22 years ago when I began this journey, because when you have a little bit of knowledge, right?
It's a dangerous
You
thing.
tend to overestimate your competence or your ability. And that is actually very in line with the research around self-assessment for students as well, which is
repeatable
your
phenomenon.
Competence will influence how accurate your self-assessments are. And that Dunning-Kruger effect does that. All right.
We digress.
Let's talk about number 4.
Yes.
All right. And this is where you and I have a real benefit here.
We do. But we didn't at the beginning.
No, it's a bit of a built-in cheat code for us now. But here's number 4. Stop doing everything alone and start building in community, right? It took me a lot longer to see those numbers and never seek official help, or never kind of see the idea that just flailing in in my aloneness of trying to build an hour, trying to build this. We get praised in education for being that one-man show or that one-woman show, the one-person show. No news is good news, right?
Oh gosh, I hate that phrase.
We also know that collective efficacy is everything.
We do know
right?
this.
We know that. And looking for communities that deeply align with your identities, both as educators, as entrepreneurs, this is how we can start to really thrive and stop isolating ourselves.
I have to say on that one, because, and we've heard it from a lot of our clients, especially recently, like they leap, they go in full time, they're doing the entrepreneur thing, and they start to panic because they do want to work with others. They want to grow with others. And so early on, I didn't understand this as well.
Yeah.
So I tried to find, like I said, community with the wrong people sometimes. So I'd either search educator communities or entrepreneur communities. But there's nothing worse than trying to find community with people that aren't aligned with you. And it actually, they talk about you're like the product of the 5 people you spend your time around.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time around a community that's no longer aligned with the same goals and the energy that you want to cultivate. It can have a detrimental impact as well. This idea that you have to figure it out alone. And I mean, so much of this is a mindset and a habit from education. I remember I got praised once in my first years. You know what we love about you, Natalie? Not my assessment practice, not my pedagogy, not my relationships with kids. Nope. You just never need anything from us. Like it was like this, oh, good for you. Like
you love that about you? Like what?
They said they loved that about me. I never needed anything from them. I just handled things. And so and I'm sure others listening have had that kind of messaging throughout their years in education.
Totally.
It's, looked down upon to be someone who reaches out and collaborates. And I actually got in my late years when I was a much more advanced teacher, I was teaching and instructional coaching for a few years. I got actually chastised for like trying to make people work with me, like to try to learn together, to like engage collective efficacy. And when I finally stopped trying to collaborate with people, they actually congratulated me for my leadership. Like there is a weird thing in education. What's that awful saying about it's the second most private?
The second most private act human beings engage in. You can figure out the first one. It is such what a toxic things to say to people.
I know.
It's so interesting that in education, I have said this to groups many times. Does anyone in this room think they have all the answers? No one raises their hand, of course. Maybe they secretly do. And then I look at them and I say, well, why do we act like we do? Like, why do we isolate ourselves? Oh, if I could just shut my door and they would just leave me alone, let me teach, I could do it by myself.
It's strange.
That is saying you have all the answers. No one has all the answers. And I think the one thing that's wonderful about the community that we've kind of cultivated and built is it does bring in the best of both worlds, which is we love the energy of that entrepreneurial space, the energy, the intensity sometimes, the go for it mindset that comes with that entrepreneurial space. But when you combine that with the educator space is grounded, it's thoughtful, it's intentional, it's community driven, relational. So for me, the Venn diagram between those two is the sweet spot, the proverbial sweet spot where you get a bit of the best. There's the drive of the entrepreneurial, but there's the grounding of the educator. And to me, those two places coming together
it's magical.
It's where the magic happens.
Which is why we're so fired up about this community that we are building, obviously. And a reminder that this is the community that we are cultivating in the Educators Freedom Lab, formerly known as the Unleash Yes Bootcamp.
Yeah.
So if that is something you're seeking, no pressure, but it's something that's always there for you.
All right.
But this brings us to the final. I don't know if there's a first among equals, but this might be it.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. You need to stop treating your business like a hobby, folks. And again, remember, we say this from a place of we've made many, many mistakes. But the more that you feel like it's something that's just for fun, it's this fancy little creative project you have over here that you'll dabble in here and there. Someone said this to me once, so I'm going to say it to everyone listening right now because it's so important. No one will take your business seriously until you do. The longer you keep acting like it's a fun, playful hobby, but secretly wishing it was something more, wishing it would just blow up and like pluck you like the claw machine that you go to in those arcades from your life and plop you into a new reality, you have to let go of that, this myth you have that you're just going to get. Do you know where that's coming from? the mindset of I will be picked by others. I will be given permission. I will be selected. I will be chosen. You have to let it go. And honestly, it's pretty simple, but if you want a full-time outcome from your job or from your new business, if you want a full-time outcome, you need to give it a full-time effort.
Yeah.
If you're giving it a part-time effort right now and a bit of a hobby effort, you're going to get a part-time hobby outcome.
Yeah. There is an avatar or a caricature, if you will, of someone that you and I are cautious about. And this is, no disrespect intended, but we have had some experiences where we hesitate if somebody is coming to us looking for something to do in retirement.
Yeah.
And we have had experiences on both sides of that ledger where, and we've pressed people and we've learned to press them a little bit more because what'll happen is if you're just looking for a hobby in retirement, as soon as there's a little bit of friction, you're going to lean back on your pension and you're going to just say, or you're going to create like your own little mastermind group and the 2 or 3 of you are going to sit around and pontificate about how you could.
Masters of the universe.
Yeah, okay, whatever. And yet there are others who we've talked to who are saying like, there's a difference between somebody saying, this is what I want to do in retirement and this is what I'm retiring to.
Yeah.
Like the retiring to something brings an energy
Yes.
of commitment and focus. To me, I'm just looking for something to do in retirement. That sounds like a hobby. And I think over the last year or so, you and I have gotten a little bit better at sniffing that out a little bit and pressing people on that because this is what it sounds like. And we have on occasion said no to people that we don't think you're in that right place. I would say for the most part, our experience with that has been very positive, but there has been times where we thought, I don't know, this feels like somebody who's just going to kind of stop or just play around the edges because as soon as it gets hard, they're not going to be invested.
Absolutely. This is a huge one. And it's, we had to face it ourselves. Like when we finally went all in our business is when it started to take off. And we see the same thing with our clients. There's this mental game people play with themselves where they're like, well, it's hard for me. You don't understand. I have bills to pay. I have kids at home. So I can't go all in until I have full-time income. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes we get it. The fear is, you were there. The fear is very real.
Totally. I had a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old and I was almost exclusively not zero, but I was the primary breadwinner in the family.
I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
We're not suggesting just rip the cord and jump and go in. Like, did I kind of a little bit?
Yeah.
But I did have some money saved up. I had been thinking about this for quite a long time. I had been starting to refine and through my podcast and through different opportunities that were starting to open up. We were starting to write a book together. So like, it wasn't like it was a total blind leap, and we're not suggesting you just do a out of the blue 180 pivot.
No.
That would probably not be wise.
No.
But we are saying that as you're starting to put some intentional processes in place for yourself, at some point you just have to say, if I don't try now and I don't go all in, I can't ever look at this and say it was failed because you never really gave it a full
It's
effort.
another way for people to opt out. Something you and I have heard, like if I could guarantee to replace my income, then I would definitely think about it. Well, guess what? There are no guarantees in life. Like you're asking for the impossible. So that's just a way to say, I'm not, again, we're not saying be cavalier with your family, but also don't use them as a shield either.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a little bit of skin in the game, if you're not a little bit worried about your success, you're not going to be successful.
There's nothing like a little.
A little urgency about like, I can't fail. This has to work. Yeah. Now, and this is the part I think people forget. When I was going through the process of thinking about resigning from my job, 2 really important thoughts entered my mind. One is that I was being a bit hypocritical. What was I telling my 14-year-old and my 11-year-old over the short period of time prior? I would tell them things like, just do what you love. Do what energizes you. The money will come. Like you can figure out income, follow your passion or figure out what you're good at and just like what drives you, right? And then there's their dad playing it safe. That was the first one.
Yeah.
The second one was I wasn't leaving and erasing my experience. I had 20 years of experience in the school system. If my entrepreneurial journey had not turned out, I'm employable. Someone will hire me. So for me, the risk was worth it because I wanted to know, I didn't want to live with regret. And so I think for a lot of people, we're trying to give this disclaimer about, like, we're not saying be cavalier with your family, and we're not. But at the same time, you can cripple yourself with fear to the point where you're so afraid, you're almost afraid of success in a way, in a weird way, because you just will put all the obstacles in your way and not be able to take any movement toward that. So I just feel like there does need to be a little bit of risk involved, calculated risk, thoughtful risk. If you need to save a little bit of money before you go all in or whatever, fine. But there does have to be a little bit of skin in the game. Like, you've got to feel it and have that drive you, because that's why people are successful.
Yeah. Mic drop. Well, okay. Here we are. Take a breath. If you're feeling called out, seen, maybe relieved, or even a little activated, you know what? Good. Because that means this episode did what it needed to do. Because none of these 5 things are about shame. We've done them. We've been there 100%. They're about awareness. And once you see them, you really can't unsee them. Yeah.
And listen, we've made every one of these mistakes.
Yes.
All of them, every one of them. And hitting the first 100,000 in revenue felt impossible.
It did.
Until we stopped finally doing these things and started moving in the right direction. We stopped, and that's what kept us stuck. And then once we shifted, that's when everything changed for us and for every educator we've guided since then. That's how it shifts.
Totally. So if you're listening and thinking, okay, I'm done basking in the beauty of my untested ideas. I'm ready for some like reality traction. This is your moment, because like we've mentioned, the next cohort of the Educator Freedom Lab is starting and the doors are open right now.
Right. And the lab is where you stop waiting, stop guessing, and stop doing this alone. It's where you test real offers, build real systems, and get real support, while finally seeing yourself as an entrepreneur and that entrepreneur that you have always been.
Absolutely. So if you want 2026 to be the year that you stop talking about your business and actually build the thing, then book your clarity call with us while spots are open. The link's in the show notes for that, or you can head straight to the landing page that's also in the show notes to learn more and enroll yourself.
Yeah, and your future clients are not waiting for you to be perfect. They're actually just waiting for you to start.
So let's build your business for real, not just the idea, inside the Educator Freedom Lab. We'll see you in there, Yes Club.